What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy. We got some major news for you guys today. Take a look at what we got for you here in this episode. Also, just moments before this video goes live, literally I had to add this in before editing the video. The Republicans did elect a new speaker, to my shock and to a lot of people's shock, a relatively unknown in Congress, Mike Johnson. Yeah, take a look here. Who is Mike Johnson? One of the House's staunchest conservatives, a lawyer and former chairman of the Conservative Republican Study Committee. He played a pivotal role in congressional efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and he has a long history of opposition to abortion and LGBTQ rights. He voted against bipartisan legislation to codify same-sex marriage, and he has less than 7 years under his belt in Congress, the least experienced speaker ever. Ahead of the vote, numerous members of Congress said they knew little about him. Many people said they hadn't even heard of him. Inexperience seems to be a qualification, quote. I have to wonder if the Republicans were just tired of not being able to pick somebody and just picked the next best guy up there. And maybe this guy didn't have any enemies and he was the right person at the right time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for immediate ceasefire to end the, quote, epic suffering in Gaza. Spark fierce row and criticism, but, it depends on how you look at this. Israel calls for resignation of the Secretary General. As 700 deaths are reported in one day. And hospitals close for warrant of electricity and for lack of fuel. Also, about 170,000 homes have been damaged or completely destroyed in Gaza already. We'll get to that here. Also, the Pentagon says that U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria, military bases there, have been attacked 13 times in the past week. As you can see, this war is happening against U.S. military troops and U.S. military personnel. Pentagon officials say that these attacks on U.S. troops have, quote, Iranian fingerprints all over it. Senior defense officials say, quote, I think it's fair to say when you see this uptick in activity in attacks by many of these groups, there's Iranian fingerprints all over it. Take a look at what is happening right now.
Hey guys, good morning. The Israelis continue their strikes against the Gaza Strip. I do want to tell you a little bit about last night as we were along the border watching these flashes of light, both tank fire and airstrikes into Hamas and Islamic Jihad positions. We could see Israeli authorities and soldiers near the border. There was some level of commotion, small arms back and forth, and flares being fired into the air. We've learned today that 2 Hamas militants tried to infiltrate through the Zakim beach area into southern Israel. So it gives you a sense 19 days into this conflict, this is still both a ground and air conflict. Just last hour, Hamas fired a long-range rocket north of the city of Haifa. This sits in the northern part of Israel, so they're still able to maintain their ability to fire rockets toward major population centers despite the thousands of airstrikes that are taking place along the Gaza Strip and the continued attempts for infiltration. I do want to draw your attention to the north, though. Along the border with Lebanon, more anti-tank guided missile attacks into Israeli territory. The Israelis striking more Hezbollah positions, both command centers and launch points, trying to hit as many of those cells as possible. And then overnight in the West Bank, the Israelis say that they struck a group of militants in the refugee camp of Jenin, killing 3 of them. that were throwing explosive devices at Israeli soldiers. So we really are looking at a three-front situation here. The Israelis bracing for what could come next, and the entire country uncertain about when that ground invasion into the Strip will be decided. Guys, back to you.
Hey, Trey, is there a sense that the Prime Minister Netanyahu has to get the go-ahead from President Biden to do anything? Because I hear his right is very frustrated. They can't figure out why they're waiting. Can you get a sense of the politics there?
Absolutely. We could talk about the politics of the Americans and also the other regional players in all of this. According to reports, the United States is urging the Israelis to not immediately enter Gaza and move forward with this ground operation, despite the staging here in southern Israel of thousands of infantry troops, tanks, and APCs that are ready to take the battle to Hamas. This is for two reasons. One has to do with the hostages that haven't yet been freed, 220 people being held by Hamas inside Gaza. The other has to do with the plan for the future and who will take care of Gaza once Hamas is destroyed. And that's a real concern because you have more than 2 million civilians, and the death toll in Gaza is rapidly rising. More than 5,700 people have been killed, according to local authorities. I do want to read you, though, just a statement we received this morning by Israel's national security advisor that gives us some insight on what's taking place. He says, "I'm pleased to say that Qatar is becoming an essential party and stakeholder in the facilitation of humanitarian solutions. Qatar's diplomatic efforts are crucial at this time." So clearly the Qataris are working behind the scenes, trying to ferry messages between the Israelis and Hamas and get as many of those civilians that are being held inside Gaza to safety.
Trey, the people you talk to that serve the country and the IDF, what are they saying? Do they want to go in?
They do. The vast majority of soldiers that I've been texting with and staying in touch with along the border say they're ready to take the battle to Hamas. They saw the massacre that took place on October 7th. They understand the trauma that Israel has faced on what's being called the country's darkest day. And so they're ready to not just degrade the capabilities of this organization in the Strip, but completely eradicate Hamas from the map. They want to get rid of the group that caused the pain and the suffering of their people. And so they're ready. They're ready to go, and they're waiting for those orders. And that's part of the calculation the Israeli political echelon has to make in all of this, understanding that each and every day that goes by, you have soldiers that have this adrenaline here in the South. They're ready to go. And some of that will die down as the days pass.
Yeah, so I can see that from both sides. First of all, I feel for any civilians that are left in the Gaza area. Hopefully, most or all of them have evacuated. Anybody that's left in that area, God bless them. It's a war zone. Hopefully, all or most of them or nearly all of them have evacuated that area. It's a war zone. It's literally bombing back and forth, missiles back and forth. Hopefully, nearly all of them, or if not, we know that not every single one of them has left, but hopefully nearly all of them have left and not stayed. And there's innocence on both sides here. And obviously there's attacks going from both sides here, and it's war. It's war. You got to remember here that, as you just heard there, Israel wants to eradicate the people that attacked them out of the blue on October 7th here, which is almost 3 weeks ago now at this point, so it doesn't happen again. And, there's people calling for a ceasefire here, but from Israel's point of view, they don't want these attacks to happen out of the blue again. So you can kind of see both points of view. And this is why Israel gave the civilians time to get out of there and leave the area where the Hamas militants are there. And, the White House is saying that a ceasefire right now would only benefit Hamas, who's still there with the hostages, who may or may not ever even fully be released. They've only released, I think it's 4 at this point, and they've purposely kept 98% of them or so. They purposely not released them all, or very few, I mean, this is a purposeful strategy. Also, with these attacks against U.S. military bases and U.S. personnel, we have not really seen a U.S. response against them. We have not seen, a massive U.S. attack back that has made major headlines. You can let me know your thoughts here on this. I will keep you up to date here in these videos. If you haven't yet, subscribe down below. Click the bell icon. Don't forget to like and share these videos. Click here to see Putin, Russia, and China's role in what is happening in Israel, or click here to watch my newest video next. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.